Hello, everyone. My name is Don, the movie reviewer, and today we're going to be talking about Toy Story 4. I am not a huge Toy Story fan. Guilty as charged.
I did.
Vaguely remember the first Toy Story movie in 1995. I was a wee young lad at the time. The first Toy Story movie was a very interesting movie.
From what I remember.
I just watched it again recently, and it touched my heart. Toy Story 2, on the other hand, isn't as good as the first Toy Story because it just doesn't have that same amount of heart that I felt from the first movie. Toy Story 2 just feels like a generic sequel that tries to go bigger and better and thinks that everything needs to be more grandiose.
You killed my father!
No, Buzz. I am your father.
Toy Story 3, on the other hand, is a movie that I absolutely
adore.
Toy Story 1, close to my heart. Toy Story 2, good movie, but not as good as the first one. But Toy Story 3 is a movie that is as good, if not better, than the first Toy Story movie, if you ask me. So even though I'm not the biggest Toy Story movie fan, because once I watch the movies, I forget about them for a while. But every single time I watch them, they always hit me in my heart. Toy Story 4 is a movie that takes place in its own timeline. You don't have to necessarily watch the previous Toy Story installments to understand what's going on in this movie. At the beginning of Toy Story 4, we go back 9 years into the past during the first Toy Story movie, I believe, when Andy is a little boy and he's playing with Woody, and Woody is trying to save the RC car from floating away in a flood. And Woody, being the selfless hero that he is, he goes and he tries to save the RC car. And when he does, his love interest, Bo Peep from Toy Story 1, is given away to some random person, and Woody is upset. And at first he wants to go with Bo Peep on whatever journey she's about to go on, but Woody, being the selfless hero that he is and having his love for his best friend Andy, he decides to stay behind. Skip ahead a few years later and we are in the present time. And like I said, we don't really need to watch the previous installments to know what's going on in this movie because they give us a bit of a recap at the beginning. Andy becomes an adult, he goes to college, Andy gives his toys to Bonnie, and Bonnie's a little girl, she starts playing with Woody. So then we get that little bit of shadow leaking in from the first Toy Story movie when they introduced Buzz Lightyear and Woody was all jealous and obsessed. Now Woody is back in a similar situation where he doesn't feel like he is loved, but learning his lesson from the first movie, he doesn't, go all bananas about it. But at the same time, him being the selfless hero, he feels that he must do the right thing, which is comforting Bonnie in her time of need, even though she has ignored him. Bonnie is attending her first day of kindergarten orientation, and she cannot take any toys with her. Bonnie is sad and distressed, and so Woody, against everyone's wishes, sneaks in Bonnie's backpack to help her out emotionally. And in this process of Woody being the selfless hero and thinking that he's doing the right thing, he gathers all of this trash and throws it on Bonnie's desk, and Bonnie creates Forky. Forky is an absolutely funny character in this movie. At the very beginning, he's just like, trash. He just wants to go back in the trash. He came from the trash, he feels comfortable in the trash, and that's where he feels he belongs. So there is an interesting setup here with Forky and seeing Forky go throughout his miserable existence, not knowing his place in the world of being a toy. So Woody, just like in the first movie, trying to explain to Buzz Lightyear that he's a toy, he goes through that similar process of explaining it to Forky. During a road trip, Forky tries to escape numerous times, and one of his escape plans actually falls through. Woody, being the selfless hero, goes to try and rescue Forky, who has caught himself in a predicament, so he hasn't gotten very far with his escape plan. Woody, being the selfless hero again, tries to escort Forky back to Bonnie and also try to explain to Forky how important it is to be a part of a kid's life. After Woody explains all of this stuff to Forky, Forky comes to the realization that, hey, as much as I like trash and I feel like it's warm, Bonnie looks at me as warm, and so therefore I love her. And now Forky, dealing with this epiphany, he decides to go back to Bonnie. While Woody and Forky try to go back to Bonnie, Woody discovers that Bo Peep is in an antique shop. While roaming around this antique shop trying to find his lost love, Woody and Forky encounter Gabby Gabby. Gabby Gabby and her minions, who look like the dummies from R.L. Stine's Goosebumps novels, come off as extremely odd. At first in the movie, it seems like Gabby Gabby is just out for herself and she uses the R.L. Stine Goosebumps dummies to do her bidding because Gabby Gabby is a broken doll whose voice box doesn't work anymore and she just wants to be loved. So then she decides to steal Woody's voice box, and Woody ain't having that. So in a very exciting chase scene, Woody escapes, leaving Forky behind with Gabby Gabby and the R.L. Stine Goosebump dummies. There is so much story going on in this movie because next we have Buzz Lightyear and the rest of the gang trying to figure out how they're going to get Woody and Forky back. And earlier in the movie, Woody just says, hey, I have to keep Forky with Bonnie because of the inner voice that is telling me to do this. And then so in a very funny sequence of events, Buzz Lightyear presses the recorder button on his chest and he believes that it is his inner voice. And just like the previous Toy Story movies, miraculous things happen just by coincidence. But even though this adventure is progressing on coincidences, it is the most entertaining action movie I have seen in a long time. I don't care about the coincidences. I just write them off because it keeps me engaged, it keeps me guessing, it's funny, it's entertaining. I love it, so whatever. I just let it go. So then later on, Woody finds Bo Peep, and there are numerous moments in this movie that made me cry. Woody and Bo Peep's relationship in here feels like a real relationship. It feels like they are two soulmates who have drifted apart. She's gone off in one direction, he's gone off in another because they have different views and opinions, but you can tell that they want to be together, but they can't because of the views and opinions. And so when they finally come back together, it is heartwarming because of the slow interactions that they have together, these little nice moments of them just glancing at each other. And even though this is animation and they're toys, I feel the emotion resonating within these characters who are animated toys. The relationships feel real, and there's so much going on in here because then Forky is being held captive by Gabby Gabby and her R.L. Stine Goosebump dummies. Bo Peep and Woody come up with an elaborate plan to try and get Forky back. And during this moment, Buzz Lightyear is trying to find Woody and Forky.
And Buzz Lightyear.
his own little predicament, and he gets captured. Then he encounters Bunny and Ducky, who are also very funny. So Buzz Lightyear getting out of his situations by using his inner voice. The coincidence, he just sees Woody and Bo Peep, and they all come together, and then they come up with the plan to try and save Forky from Gabby Gabby and her minions. So then they go in there, and it's all this action, and it's fantastic because all of these different elements are coming into play with the emotions and story, and everyone having their own agendas, and it's fantastic. It meshes really well. I'm super engaged with this. And so then we see Gabby Gabby holding Forky hostage, and Forky doesn't even know what's going on. Forky's absolutely clueless to everything. And then so we have Bo Peep, they go in an antique store, and then we have this funny moment with Bunny and Ducky talking about how they're going to get the key from the old lady who runs the antique store. It's absolutely hilarious sequence.
You come from? Well, we're not doing that.
And then there's more story in here, because then Bo Peep introduces Woody to Duke Kaboom, and Duke Kaboom is just this stunt guy who is constantly sad and grieving about his past friend, his past child, who was named Rajon. It's so funny, it's so hilarious the way Duke Kaboom pronounces his former child friend's name, because he's always grieving about it. So we have that element with that character in here. So we got all this stuff going on. Then they execute their plan to try and get Gabby Gabby to, get Forky back. And then there's this whole entire chase, and it's fantastic. All these Toy Story movies do this. There's so much action in these Toy Story movies. It's always fantastic. There's always this suspense and the emotion, and it's fantastic. And this movie, Toy Story 4, is no exception. It has all of those good elements in here. It's fantastic. And then so we go through our chase, and they got a cat in there, and the bunny, and the ducky, and Woody, and all this stuff's fantastic. And just like every other Toy Story movie, you don't know what's going to happen. It's not all glamour at first, like we succeeded. No, they fail, and now they're down and out, and then now the team separates, and Woody fights with Bo Peep, and they separate, and Woody, being
Selfless
hero that he is, he tries to go back and save Forky. And then it's revealed that Gabby Gabby is not a completely horrible person, even though she having her minions do her bidding, and she wants to steal this voice box from Woody, and she will do it at any cost, even kidnapping people. But you learn that, hey, she's doing it because she's never been loved by a kid. That is her one ultimate goal. So now this movie is hitting me in the heart even more, because this person who is labeled as a bad person, I have sympathy for this person, because I can understand that, yeah, you've never been loved before. She says when she came out of the box, her voice box was already broken, and so she's never had that connection with a child friend at any time in her life, and that's all she wants. She goes about it in the wrong way, you could say, but I understand where she's coming from. So then, in this move, Woody gives up his voice box so that Gabby could be happy and Forky could go back to Bonnie, and all's right with the world. So then Woody technically gives up his heart to Gabby Gabby so that she could be happy. Woody is always, putting his life out on the line for other people. So then once Woody, gives Gabby Gabby his heart, all's right with the world. Forky's back. They go back to try to go back to Bonnie. And then we think, okay, it's going to end right here. But no, there's a twist. Gabby, who is interested in this one child that always goes to the antique shop, isn't interested in Gabby. Gabby tries to be loved by this kid because that was her ultimate goal. But the kid just disposes of her. And it's so heartbreaking because you're thinking, oh yeah, it's going to be happy. But it's not. The movie just stomps on your heart and crushes it. And you just feel so bad for Gabby, who at first you're like, oh, you're evil, and now I feel sympathy for you. So it's like this very interesting character changes going on here with this movie. So then again, Woody, being the selfless hero that he is, he decides to go back and help Gabby, even though he has to get Forky back to Bonnie. And Woody goes back to Gabby and he says, you know what? Don't even worry about that kid. We have a kid you can come to and she'll love you. Don't be sad anymore. So then they all become friends and they go off to try and catch up with Bonnie. And then all of a sudden, Gabby sees a crying lost child. And in her selfless act, she decides to try and win this child over. And it's another scene that touched me and it made me cry. There are multiple moments in this movie that made me cry, and this is one of them. She goes to the kid, and then Woody and his friends help Gabby out to try and befriend this kid. The kid, is just like, oh, are you lost too? And pulls the voice box, and now she has the voice box, which is what she's always wanted. And then this kid takes off with Gabby, and now Gabby has found that ultimate soulmate that she's been searching for her whole life. So with that mission accomplished, Woody and Forky and Buzz and the gang try to go back to Bonnie, and then so in this moment, Bo Peep and Woody come face to face, and just like at the beginning of the movie, Woody being the selfless hero, he says, okay, now I have to go back to Bonnie. And, they have their last little glance at each other. Woody decides to go back to Bonnie, but then Buzz says, you know what? Follow your heart. Or follow your inner voice, so to speak. And so Woody, listening to his inner voice, decides to become a lost toy and go back to his true love, Bo Peep. And they live happily ever after. Now you may think, well, why did Woody do that? Now it's like a twist in this whole series, because in the first 3 installments, Woody is always about the team. He's always about sticking with his best friend, which is the theme song to the Toy Story movies, your best friend. And then finally, in Toy Story 4, Woody decides to go against that. He decides to not be the selfless hero anymore, because it's like, I feel he's done all he can do, right? He's given his own life for other people numerous amounts of times. And then on top of that, at the beginning of Toy Story 4, not at the beginning, but, a little bit after the beginning, Bonnie just leaves Woody in the closet. So it's illustrated that, well, Bonnie won't really miss Woody. Bonnie won't really miss Woody at all. So it's okay that he disappears and he's gone. Bonnie's not going to question it because she loves Forky more. So it doesn't matter. It's all good. And so at the end of this thrill ride, everybody gets what they want. Forky wanted to be in the trash. He finally finds a home and he realizes that, hey, I'm a toy, and he accepts it all. And the very stinger at the end of this movie is fantastic, because rewatching the first 3 Toy Story movies, I always ask myself this question: how are they alive? And Forky at the end of this movie answers that question with, I don't know. My verdict for Toy Story 4 is I love it. I love this movie. This movie made me cry multiple times. It had some of the best action scenes I've seen in a long time. It had so much emotion to it. It had so much depth to it. It was unpredictable. There were lots of coincidences, but all the Toy Story movies have that, and I don't care, because it was fun, it was funny, and it was clever. That's what I like about this movie. It had all of these different elements. It had love, it had sacrifice, it had emotional depth to it and feelings. And it hit me on an emotional level so many times, and it had me just going and racing and, moving around in my seat. There were so many great things that were going on in this movie. I love this movie. This is a fantastic movie. Toy Story 4. The Toy Story franchise has to be one, if not the only franchise that has sequels that are just as good, if not better, than the first movie, excluding Toy Story 2. I don't really care for Toy Story 2 all that much. It's a good movie, but I would rather go with Toy Story 1 over Toy Story 2. Toy Story 3, just as good, if not better, than the first one. But Toy Story 4 is just as good, if not better, than the first movie. And so this is one of those franchises that every sequel, they get better, if not just as good. That is a rare thing, because usually sequels suck. But with Toy Story, No, that's not the case. I love this movie. What more can I say about this? It's a fantastic movie. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Toy Story 4, it has everything. Everything you can want in a movie. Action, suspense, drama, love, emotion, character arcs, character changes, funny moments, interesting moments, moments with emotional depth, everything. Everything is in Toy Story 4. And this is an animated movie. This is better than a lot of live action movies, dare I say. Toy Story 4 is a fantastic movie. It's good for not only kids, but adults as well. It's good for the whole family. It's got everything you could want in a movie. I highly recommend Toy Story 4 if you haven't seen it. Anyway, that's enough praising this because it is fantastic and there's nothing more I can say about this. That's all I have to say. So as always, thank you for watching and I will talk to you next time.